The Susan Brender Show is a radio show online broadcasted on YouTube across the United States and globally. The show features guests who speak about health, spirituality, entertainment, and a host of subjects to enlighten people across the nation. Listen to the show that empowers women and men alike and highlights those who have made a difference. I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Today, even though Black Lives Matter emerged initially as a social media response to events such as George Zimmerman's acquittal in the shooting death of Trayvon Martin, it soon morphed into a movement and now exists as an organized movement with a comprehensive philosophy of the society and the specific political platform. My guest today is Sylvester Boyd. He's the author of The Road for Money, and it's his first novel based upon the true stories told to him by several family members over the years. He has woven both fact and fiction into a dynamic portrayal of historical events of the era, including music, inventions, and the journey of a young Negro girl and her family living under the trying times of Jim Crow in the South. I want to welcome to the Susan Brender Show, Sylvester Boyd. And thank you for being on the show again, Sylvester. I'm really delighted that you're on the show. Now, let me ask you a question, because this is a very chaotic time, and a lot of things that are going on really have an impact on society. So I want to know, does Black Lives Matter really contend that most police officers are racist?
No, it doesn't, Susan. Basically, we shouldn't even have the word Black Lives Matter. That should be just natural. All lives do matter. But because of the history of black people in the United States, we have to say that because of the lynchings, the slavery, the disrespect, the brutality, we have a special place, and that saying becomes very apropos because we don't act like in this country, or have not for 401 years, that black lives do matter. We don't have to say white lives matter. It's just taken for granted, and it should be taken for granted that all lives matter. But when you disrespect one segment of our population, or not just one segment, but any minority segment of our population, then it becomes necessary for that population to state who they are and what they are. And for too long, we have not addressed the fact that Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. So what is Black Lives Matter's view of justice? I mean, you might have a sense of what that is, and I would like our audience to understand what. Again, I'm going to repeat that question because I think it's really important, and is, what is Black Lives Matter's view of justice? And that is something I want to ask you, Sylvester. What is your answer?
Black Lives Matter is basically stating that we have not acted in a respectful manner toward black lives. It comes out, I think you mentioned a couple of incidents that had happened recently, and George Floyd. That would be a good case in point right now. If the life of George Floyd had been important and valued, there's no way a white police officer could have sit on him until the life left his body. That is total disrespect, and it says loud and clear, his life did not matter. And we can go on with instances after instance where the general white society doesn't value black life, brown life, any other life except Caucasian and European lives. And, that's just a frank point, and I'm a very frank and blunt person. Truth is truth, and we shouldn't go around. The problem is we've been going around truth too long. We make people feel good. This is not a feel-good subject. Slavery was not a feel-good subject. Jim Crow was not a feel-good thing. The atrocities and the pain that has been caused by injustice is not and has never been a good thing. It has always been evil.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the intersectionality, and how does it relate to Black Lives Matter? Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, everything is connected. There's nothing that happens in this world that is not connected to something else. You don't do a thing here and not expect for that thing to appear later on. It may not materialize right away, but we are paying for things that great grandfathers did. The taking down of the statue. The statue, why would you want a statue of someone who seceded from the United States of America? The Civil War was fought on to secede from the Union. The people who fought the war were traitors, basically. They were fighting against the very flag that everybody waves right now, and they had their own flag, the Stars and Bars, which is not the American flag. And so now we're arguing for the Stars and Bars. The South has to get over the fact that they lost the war, and we move forward from there. And they seem to be stuck in revisionist history that is not true, history that is not accurate. We, as a country, are 50 states, and the South is a part of the United States. So we have to move on. It would be like in Germany, Adolf Hitler lost the war, and we put up statues all over Germany of Hitler and Goebbels and some of his henchmen all over Germany. Statues should be only given in places to people who have done noble deeds, not people who have done ignoble deeds. And the Civil War was an ignoble deed toward the Union.
Yeah. Let me ask you something, Sylvester. When you have statues that are of people that you're suggesting you shouldn't have, don't you want to teach your kids and people in general about the history? I mean, isn't that a way to kind of get people to learn, maybe just based upon what you said, that these people really should not have had statues, but on the other hand, how do you teach history if you don't have that?
You teach history by the way I learned history. You teach it from the books, not from a statue. You have museums. If you wanted to represent those people, some of the Confederate generals, like Hood and Robert E. Lee, you have that. You don't obliterate or eliminate it from history. What you do is put it in its proper place. I don't need to be, as a black citizen of the United States, I don't need to go to New Orleans and see that they have a thing called Lee Circle, and big as can get is Robert E. Lee recently. I mean, that statue has been removed, but it's a reminder. It's like putting Adolf Hitler up as some hero. He was not a hero. So history has to be accurate. Anytime you change history, it becomes revisionist history. You revive the truth. And the truth is the truth, and it always stays the same.
Have you ever experienced a racist kind of situation for yourself?
Yes, I have. Not many, but I have been stopped by police officers and made to step out of a car and, put my hands on the trunk for more than having a tail light on a car out. That was some years ago. I think the situation has become much worse with between the police and the citizenry. But it should never be that something is done to a minority that wouldn't be done for the same thing to a majority person. That is what America is wrestling with, the fact that we treat people differently. If you treat people differently, if you disrespect someone, it is always that they're going to resent that disrespect. And white people are no different. If I do something that to a person, a European, and it's disrespectful, they're going to resent it. We're just as human. There's no difference. We try to convince ourselves there's a difference. The differences are only illusions and in people's minds.
So what is the identity politics, and how does it relate to BLM?
Well, basically, everything is done for power. In any society, we have to have people who run the society. All forms of government are run by somebody, some way. It's how you treat your citizens. And our politics in the United States have become divided so much along racial lines, along gender lines, political party lines. What is done is not done for the people, by the people, of the people, and for the people. That's the way our government should run. It's the way it's stated. But what we get and what is stated is two different things. We state that it's of the people, by the people, and for the people, but it seems to be along political lines, we make issues out of just about everything that can be a good example, just about everything that can be made an issue out of. The virus that is sweeping our country right now, we're making a political issue out of something that should only be regarded as a health issue, a public health issue. And that's why the United States is leading the world in the number of cases. We just crossed 4 million cases. Everything is made an issue, political issue in America, a racial issue in America. So we're told to be one nation under God, indivisible. We're not indivisible. We are probably one of the most divisible countries on the face of the earth.
What do you attribute that to? I hear that in Europe, for example, even years and years ago, that they were just much more open-minded to people of color. Why in America is this an issue? Why?
Because, number one, Europe, in probably very few places on earth, started out with slavery. The demeaning, the unfortunate circumstances of one human being being able to be treated like he was the property of another human being. They had indentured service in Europe. There was slavery in Europe, but it was a lighter form of it. You could work so many years and your servitude would be over. It wasn't based on color. You know, that's where America really made a left turn to the wrong place. We go to a foreign land, pick up people from their shores, bring them back here, and exploit them for labor, and it's all based on the one skin color. And nobody picked their parents. I defy any white person in the world or European to tell me you picked your parents. You didn't. You could have been as dark as me, and I could have been as light as you. It shouldn't have any bearing on who you are. And we've basically taken that and just run it in the ground as far as we possibly can. Unfortunately, that makes a big difference. I've traveled to Europe, and I can attest to the fact that I think that there are a lot less prejudice in Europe than there are in America. Matter of fact, America is a unique form of prejudice. England has some of it, but my personal experience, and I've traveled all to the islands in the Bahamas, and I've been to South America. America has a real unique form of prejudice. It just comes from the fact the way we started the country is on a crooked foundation. And as my grandmother used to say, if you plant a crooked seed, you will get a crooked plant that will bear crooked fruit. So slavery was the crooked seed, and you got to this day, it's still bearing that crooked fruit. And white Europeans do not want to look at it and see it for what it is. It is just a system of being able to place some people above other people solely because they were born of a certain hue, a certain color hue. And that is ridiculous. It's preposterous, but and the pain is coming back. And it's going to get more painful if we don't correct it. You can only get bad things from a bad seed will always bear bad fruit, as my grandmother also used to say. So this, to me, you have to face it. It can take 400 years, if it takes 800 years. Sooner or later, that fruit becomes too heavy to bear. And America hopefully will look, and it will take white America to look in the mirror and see who they are, who their ancestors were, and what has been done to other people. It's simple. And until you say, I'm sorry, or you apologize for the things that have been done in the past, you may have not have done them, but the legacy is still here. what your great-grandfather or great-grandmother have done still has a bearing on what happens today, generations from the time that they did it. The Civil War still has implications because we are the United States of America. We would have been two different nations had that war not been successful. So, I mean, things done in history generally point to where we're going, and it also tells you where we've been. So those two things put together, and we don't study history as people. We just do not study history. I think it should be required in all universities and high school settings, and it should be definitely a certain number of semesters of history that one has to take to understand who you are, where you are, and where the country is and who the country is. It takes a good understanding of history, and not just the history. Me as a black person, I have studied not my own history, but my professor used to say if you just understand African-American history, you're not a historian and you don't know history. Because I have to understand the Mexicans, I have to understand the Asians, I have to understand the Europeans, I have to understand the African-Americans, and then I get a picture of what the world is. And because one is all connected to the other, you're going back to interconnectivity. Everything is connected to the other thing, and there's nothing that's not connected. Even people are connected. You start talking to someone in a conversation, and you'll find out they know someone that you knew or were friends of someone, or you might find a relative that you didn't know you had. We're all interconnected on this planet, and we all go through basically the same thing. We're born, we live, we die. That's it. We're born, we live, we die. And what we do with the live will tell what our lives has been. It's a dash. If you go to the cemetery, it's just a dash on a tombstone. Born, and then it says dash, and died. That's it. We all do the same thing, no matter what color, no matter how rich, no matter how poor, no matter where you're from geographically, we all are the same. We all have some of the same. We all eat, we all sleep. So we're more in common than we ever had in differences, but we are creatures that emphasize our differences and definitely don't look as to our likenesses. We are more alike than ever different from one another.
You know, Sylvester, there's always a cultural gap because people don't understand each other's culture, and they don't really want to know, because if they did, they would understand that everybody is the same, and that is a very important point. Now, I'm going to do a story in the future, but I want to kind of talk to you a little bit about it. It's racism's mental health impact. You know, I wonder, when people experience racism, does it make them anxious? Does it make them depressed? What would help them to overcome that? Does it cause them to feel distraught? And, you know, when you stop by a cop and he pushes you down on his car and he handcuffs you, it's got to have an impact, correct?
Yeah, everybody looks at it differently. We no human beings are exactly the same. Where one person that may affect negative for a long time and have a great impact on their life, the next person kind of says, okay, well, you know, that was wrong, and I know it was wrong. Let's get through this the best we can and move on. Black people know as a group, and not only black people, but Asians and Mexicans, we all know that power was given to, in the United States, as it was formed, white males. That is the group that the power is given to. A good example of that, we've had, 45 presidents, and only it took 44 presidents to get to Obama. He was the 44th. So, you know, white males have run it, basically. And not only that, women have been left out of the picture. It's not just discrimination against blacks and minorities. It's against females. We have not given females the proper place in our society. There's no reason America should not have had a black president, a woman president, excuse me. There's absolutely no reason for that. There's countries such as Pakistan, I think India's had, England, I can name South American countries have had female presidents. Why haven't we? Women are 50% of our population, more than 50%. So, there's something inherently wrong, period. The word wrong. And you have to put it at the foot of white males. Our Senate today is look at it and think about who's there. When you take a picture on TV, you see the newsreel, who's there? Who's in the Senate? And who's voting? And who's blocking what? White males right now are fearful. And in a way, I think they should be not fearful of some violent act. They should be fearful that their power will never be what it has been in the past. It because of, number one, demographic changes. The world is becoming more, not just the United States, but the world is becoming more brown. The browning of not America, the browning of the world. I've experienced that. I don't have to go too far. I can just go down to Jamaica or San Juan, Puerto Rico, or Belize, all those countries I've visited. I was in Cuba about a year ago, and most of the people are brown. And white people will have to live in a world that is the world that they've given us, that white dominated everything. I don't think we'll want to dominate everything. I think we can get to a point where we can live together. That big word, live together. Like not oil and water, but live together and respect your fellow man. Now, if we can come to that, we'll be in a great place. But this taking one group and exploiting that group and then not being held accountable for it is where we are today.
Yeah. We're going to switch gears for a moment, and this is a question that I think is important as well. That's how images play a role in what we feel about ourselves and others. You must have some kind of thoughts and some kind of answer to that, because it really is an important question. So, again, how images play a role in what we feel about ourselves and others is important. So let's hear you say what you think about that.
Yeah, well, images are very important. When I was a kid, personally, I never saw a black mannequin in the store. There was no mannequins of color. Dolls were all European. The movies that I saw, the images that I saw was always the Indians who were defending their own land, which is the United States. They were always the savages. They were always portrayed as backwards and savages that would scalp you. They were only defending what they had, their homeland at that point in time. And when the cavalry came, it was the white men coming to the rescue to clear out an area, and it was portrayed in a way that made them look like heroes for stealing land that didn't belong to them. That's an image. That's a big image. In the war movies, I can think of John Wing in the Sands of Iwo Jima. He was the big hero, Sergeant Stryker. Yes. When I look at war movies, I don't see Mexicans. I don't see blacks. I didn't see the people who really fought the war and did some of the dirty work. You don't see airplanes, black people flying airplanes. The Tuskegee Airmen flew airplanes and had one of the best records in the war. But those are the omissions and the images that you are given are subtle form of brainwash. You don't see it. It's subtle. It makes Europeans feel real good about themselves. But then it's being based on what? Not fact. It's being based on fiction or lies, basically. And when you refer to the all-American boy, does he ever look like a Spanish boy? Does he ever look like an African American or an Asian American? All American. What is that? What does that mean? That means that I can't be, or black people can't be all American? Those are the kind of images that we get. Why we couldn't be quarterbacks is because the position is denied, not because we could not perform well and be top quarterback in a league. Willie Mays and Hank Aaron broke the record for Babe Ruth. And white people actually had death threats because he did that. This is the America that we live in. Don't live in fear of the other people. learn to live with other people. And white people, I can say to this day, I'm not saying all white people, because there's all of nothing. There's always people who are understanding, sympathetic, and understand. But I'm saying probably in our history, the majority of white people have always moved away when other people come into the area. They run. Well, you don't run from something you don't fear. Why would you run if you don't fear a thing? So that's an image. We know that we are great people. The Indians have contributed a lot. The Asians built the railroads across the West. They were called coolies, but then they had laws against the Asians staying in the country, and only so many of them could come. That's the fear of the Asians. My question is, when will white America, Europeans, learn to live with their fellow man on the planet and not be better or think they're better or think they're lesser, just be one amongst many different people? And until we ask that question, until white people, not black people, not brown people, we can't solve the problem of Europeans thinking we're less or taking advantage. They have to solve that problem. That is in that house. It is not in our house. To me, I think black people and the images that we've been given can be also countered by the image that I know exists. Every time someone puts a potato chip to their mouth, a black man invented the potato chip, believe it or not. You stop at a traffic light, a black man did that. You go to Washington, D.C., where all of our power is in this country, the capital of our country, it was laid out by a black man. I can go on and on. The first heart surgery was done by a black man. Dr. George Washington Carver actually saved Southern agriculture. I'm proud of who we are. Joe Louis, Jesse Owens. I mean, I can just go on. And with that, you counter the images. That's what I've been able to do. The images that someone feeds you that you're lesser than. You're not lesser than. If you with the things, the materials that you have at your disposal, you can accomplish the thing that we as a people have accomplished. To me, I get a sense of pride. I stick my check out. These are the people, my ancestors, look what they've done. So that's where I kind of counter the images, the negative images that are fed through TV, radio, and the newspaper all the time. Because who controls the press? Who controls the TV? Europeans. And so they put a real good spin on what they do and a negative spin on what I do or what minorities do. Hopefully we can one day sit down and say, this is why we're where we are. Now, we can't change the past, because once you read a day is gone, you can never go get that day again. That day is gone. So whatever you did on that day is a part of your life forever, okay? But the day is the first day of the rest of your life, so you can correct going forward. And hopefully we will correct going forward. That is my hope. I'm very hopeful, and I'm very proud of the young people stepping up in this generation to say and address some of these issues, because they're long overdue. And the country will suffer if we keep doing what we're doing. It is destroying us. And we have to realize it's destroying not only, if you don't teach me my history, you've had to deprive a white child of true history too. It doesn't go one way. It comes both ways.
You know, Sylvester, the people who marched were made up of course, African Americans and Hispanics, and a lot of, as you call them, Europeans, or whites, if you will. And it's a wonderful thing to see people, especially young people, care about an issue like this. And you mentioned one other thing, which I would love for you to tell our audience, and that is, who is your hero? Because there are a lot of people who, certainly from history, who were amazing, but there must be somebody now who is your hero. Who would that be?
Oh, again, that you're making it a very hard choice. I have so many heroes. One of my heroes just passed away, John Lewis.
I was just about to mention that, Sylvester.
Yeah, he got beat half to death on Bloody Sunday on the Edmund Pettit's Bridge. And, I'm old enough to have watched the civil rights movement, the early civil rights movement. And, it's so many people who, it's heroes in all my different categories. Muhammad Ali was in the athletic and, area. And Jesse Owens, who in the 1936 Olympics proved that, the pure Aryans couldn't beat the African Americans. It's a lot of people that have contributed to America, and they're not all black and they're not all white. But I have many, many, many heroes, and it would be hard being a historian. I think that's the hardest question to ever ask a historian: who would be your hero? Because history is just full of people who have done tremendous things, that things beyond your wildest imagination. Some of the other people, I always like Robert Frost. He was a white guy, but stopping by the Woodside on a snowy afternoon. The words that he said, and then if you get into the deeper meaning. So I have a lot of people who I feel Dwight David Eisenhower was a hero in World War II to me, to make the decision to land the troops on Normandy. It just goes on. And like I said, they are all racists. Even the defenders at the Alamo, who were, it wasn't David Crockett that I liked. Santa Anna was a hero. He was fighting for his homeland, and the perspective has changed. If you put all white or all European lens on everything, it comes out distorted somewhat. He was fighting for his homeland. America took a lot of land that belongs to the Mexicans, just like they took a lot of land, the whole country, from the Native Americans. And so we have to look at it for what it is. Europeans came from Europe across the ocean, and they took at gunpoint this country. So, but we can live together. There's still hope for us to live together. Everybody's contributed. There's no one, although we try to make it look as if everyone didn't contribute, and we minimize what others have contributed. There's a point where we're at a point, an inflection point right now, where we can sit down to a table and say, okay, this is why I feel the way I feel. Right. This is why you feel the way you feel. But how can we go forward from this point?
Well, that's a great question to let people, kind of have a little bit of thought about. And it's time for us to end the show. But, this is also a promotional show, and we'd love you to tell people how they get your book. Give them the name of it again, and also tell them, how they find it and you and that sort of thing. And I really want to say thank you for being on the Susan Brender Show, but let's end it on how people get in touch with you, because you're an amazing man, Sylvester. You have so many ideas and so many thoughts, and it's a pleasure to have to talk to you about these things. So let's
thank you, Susan. Yeah, thank you, Susan, for the compliment. And you can get my book at boydbooks.net, BOYD, books, BOOKS.net. And my book really is about my aunt, who was born in Money, Mississippi, and it's her journey from the cotton fields of Mississippi to becoming a millionaire in Chicago, Illinois. She owned several apartment buildings, and her journey was an amazing journey. She traveled all over the world, and you'll get a chance to open my book and see that the different eras, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. And I want to say that it's not one book. I have the continuing journey. The second part has been done, and it's right now it's a trilogy, but I may have to make it a series, because her life is just that full that as I write my book, I find myself having to eliminate a lot because she had such a full life.
Well, again, my guest has been Sylvester Boyd, the author of The Road from Money, which is his first novel, and he's got another one coming up, which he just talked to you about. So thank you for being on the Susan Brender Show again, and I really enjoyed our interview.
I appreciate you having me, Susan. Thank you.